The Zero Emission Trucking Program has four primary objectives. The first is to provide capacity funding to provinces, territories, municipalities, standards development organizations to develop the codes, standards, and regulations that we need to facilitate safe deployments. The second objective is to build a commercial vehicle laboratory at Transport Canada's Motor Vehicle Test Centre, where we can conduct state-of-the-art research within the federal family and for use by external stakeholders. Thirdly, we're undertaking targeted research, so that means evaluating aerodynamic treatments on trailers and producing reports on the future of battery technologies for heavy-duty vehicles. And then lastly, we have our zero-emission trucking test beds, which put heavy-duty zero-emissions vehicles into Canadian commercial freight haul to evaluate their performance and cost of operation.
On-road transportation accounts for approximately 20% of Canada's GHG emissions, and the adoption of zero-emission trucking in the Canadian transportation sector will have a significant influence on reducing GHG emissions.
Pour donner un ordre de grandeur, un camion électrique classe 8 qui va parcourir 1000 km va réduire d'environ 1 tonne de CO2 équivalent en comparaison avec un camion diesel. Donc l'économie dans la consommation vient vraiment du fait qu'on vient substituer un carburant fossile avec un véhicule électrique qui consomme de l'énergie renouvelable.
What we find particularly unique of this test bed is the vast number of collaborators and contributors to this particular project. So we have vehicle manufacturers, we have infrastructure providers, we have fleets, drivers, various staff within the fleets that are participating, and as well as government contributors. And that depth of collaboration and involvement is really helping to identify the benefits and the challenges of implementing zero-emission trucks.
Pour avoir une adoption, c'est important de bien comprendre où les véhicules électriques ont leur place. C'est plusieurs facteurs opérationnels qui doivent être pris en compte à intégrer dans leur logiciel, dans leurs opérations, pour s'assurer vraiment que ces camions-là peuvent être utilisés à leur plein potentiel. Donc on a une approche très compréhensive où on utilise différentes sources de données, on les combine à l'interne pour avoir ensuite un portrait global des flottes, pour faire une comparaison entre les véhicules diesel ainsi que les véhicules électriques.
The Zero Emission Trucking Program and the staff at Transport Canada have been very collaborative and supportive of the work that's being undertaken.
It really takes a village to pull off these test beds, all coming together to make sure that we can collect the data that we need and to make sure that we can integrate these trucks safely into the Canadian landscape. Our specific objectives are to accelerate the safe uptake of zero-emissions trucks through research and deployments, making the data as publicly available as we can so others can learn from our experiences and then start further along the process.